Welcome and good day, everyone. You're tuning in to Reality Check, a podcast where we talk about social issues in the Philippines and different ways you can help. I am your host, Ray Bermudo.
And your co-host, Haley Achacosa.
Today's episode is entitled You Say You Care, but Do You Really? The Truth About Helping the Poor. This centers on the first Sustainable Development Goal, which is no poverty. But before we start our discussion, let's have our guests introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Shelly Rolona.
Hi, I'm Vesta Kudal.
And I am Carlos Imperial.
Thank you, everyone. Now, before we proceed, let's have a short icebreaker. We will be asking each one of you guys one rapid fire question to lighten the mood.
That's right. Now let's start with Shelly. What's one thing you can't live without?
I think I'd choose my phone.
All right, thank you, Shelly. Now for Ives, what is your go-to comfort food?
Hmm, I think I'd choose pizza. I've always loved it growing up.
Thank you, Ives. Now lastly, Carlos, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I want to fly.
All right,
I
thank
think it's
you. Thank
nice.
you.
That was fun. Now, let's talk about something that truly matters poverty. It's easy to say we care about those struggling, but do we really understand what they go through every day? Poverty isn't just about lacking money. It's about waking up, not knowing where your next meal will come from. It's about hardworking parents taking on multiple jobs, yet still struggling to make enough for themselves or for their families. Take Luisito, a 15-year-old boy from the Philippines. According to a commentary from Marino Office for Global Concerns, his father was a fisherman. But when large commercial fishing companies over-harvested local waters, their livelihood disappeared. With no stable income, Luisito resorted to collecting junk and plastic bottles just to exchange them for a handful of rice. After his father passed away, their struggles worsened and survival became more uncertain. But one day, a local basket weaving shop owner noticed him and offered him a small training position. That one opportunity changed his life and has lifted his family out of poverty. His story is inspiring, but unfortunately, not everyone gets the same chance to escape poverty.
Yes, exactly right. That was a very touching anecdote. Now, as we all know, poverty is a worldwide and ongoing issue, meaning there are many more children like Luisito who experience such challenges. Now, according to a recent report by Development Aid, around 712 million people in the world are facing extreme poverty, which is 23 million more compared to 2019. It may not seem a lot, but it's a pretty big increase. Now, in the Philippines, with our country being a third world country, it's no surprise that poverty is the number one challenge faced by Filipinos. In an analysis conducted by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, more than half of the country's population lives in rural areas, with 36% of them living in poverty. Poverty is highest among indigenous people, upland farmers, and coastal fishers. Take Barm, for example, which is the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, households in the Zamboanga Peninsula and Barm are earning and living below the poverty threshold, logging the highest poverty rate across the country. This just shows how widespread poverty actually is. Now, does anyone have any thoughts about this? How about you, Shelley? Are there any insights or suggestions you'd like to share?
That issue is certainly prominent in a lot of communities. And what's really interesting is that there's no easy fix. It's evident that it is a systemic issue and it requires collective efforts to resolve it. There's just so much underlying structures, policies, and practices that do contribute to this problem, which is what makes it harder for the communities to cope, let alone to free themselves from this issue. As I've mentioned, it really takes a collective effort. And this is where privilege comes into play. I think those with the privilege of not experiencing this has the responsibility to contribute solutions. A simple yet powerful approach that we can help is through the 5 peso habit movement. Every day, just set aside 5 pesos. As simple as that. And by the end of each month, a person would gather around an average of 150 pesos, in which they could donate to fund scholarships, charities, or soup kitchens, which provide free food for those who have nothing to eat.
Wait, hold on. Isn't 150 pesos too small to solve an issue as big as this? As you mentioned, it impacts so many people. So it's barely enough, even for a fast food meal.
I get why you think that, Haley. 150 pesos doesn't seem much at all, but pooling it with other donors, sponsors, and benefactors could go a long way. If an average of 100 people commit to this movement, that's 15,000 pesos gained in just a month. 15,000 pesos that came from just setting aside 5 pesos per day. Now that's something that I would call a collective effort.
Hey, I see where you're going with this. Something as small as 5 pesos, something that would only be considered pocket change, but could actually make a big change for the community. Most of us wouldn't even notice a 5 peso missing, but for someone out there, it could really make a difference.
Yes, and it's not only about the amount, it's also about the effort to commit. It proves that something small and consistent can create lasting change.
You know what? I agree. I'm in. It's such a simple thing to do, and if enough people join, it could really make a difference. So, when do we start?
Simple, start today. Set aside 5 pesos right now and commit to doing it every day. Imagine what we could achieve if everyone listening to this joins in. Because this movement isn't about how much one person gives, rather, it's about how many people take action. Let's turn this into something bigger.
You know what? I completely agree. The effort itself is what really matters, as well as the commitment that we are willing to embody, which is by contributing. I'd like us to just remember the famous quote, actions speak louder than words. And speaking of action, what if we pushed ourselves to do even more? That is why I would want to suggest the 1 month, one drive initiative. With this initiative, once a month, we commit to joining at least one donation drive, whether it's donations of food, clothes, school supplies, pre-loved items, or whatever necessities we can contribute or even think of. Of course, we then make sure that these are going to communities and individuals in need, whether that be people in your area, your local communities, or even donating and participating in donation drives for much bigger causes. These all still fall under the category of helping alleviate poverty, one small step at a time.
Isn't that a bit similar to the 5 peso habit movement, where we also donate at the end of each month?
Well, okay, yes, in a way it is. I guess you can say it's similar because just like the 5 peso habit mentioned a while ago by Shelley, we are still donating something to individuals in need. But unlike the 5 peso habit movement, where we pool small amounts daily to create a bigger fund, my 1 month, one drive is all about immediate action. It's about showing up, giving what you can, and making a difference right here, right now, in the moment.
I see. So it's more about how much you're willing to give. Just like how no act of kindness is too small, the real power comes from collective action.
Yeah, exactly. There are also several organizations that we can donate to such as the Balay Silingan or the Gawad Kalinga. These organizations have already established visions, missions, and even goals, which are all committed towards alleviating poverty. That is why it is these organizations and so many more around the world that we, as people and citizens, need to show full support to. Because by doing this, we are helping roll a bigger and bigger snowball of poverty reduction every time.
Now let's move on to our final initiative, something that directly tackles food waste and hunger at the same time. Carlos, can you tell us more about this?
Sure. So, did you know that while millions of Filipinos go hungry every day, tons of perfectly edible food are wasted? Restaurants, supermarkets, and even households throw away leftovers that could have fed those in need. That's where Waste Less, Feed More campaign comes in. The purpose of this is to gather and give users leftovers from places with excess resources.
That's a good point, Carlos. But realistically, how can we convince people to donate their excess food instead of simply tossing it out?
Great question. It's all about making food donation easy and accessible. Households can start small, like saving on untouched leftovers and donating them to local shelters instead of throwing them away. Restaurants and bakeries can partner with food banks to distribute surplus food rather than dumping it at the end of the day. Schools can even implement food sharing programs where students can leave unopened or extra food in designated areas for others who need it. If more strategies of gathering leftover food are found, there can be included to ensure less is wasted. It is possible to share how much impact there is to throwing things away and also mentioning the potential of users of leftovers in resolving poverty.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Instead of wasting food, we redirect it to people who really need it. But what about food safety? I'm sure some businesses might hesitate because of that.
Exactly. That's why proper handling is important. There are already organizations that follow food safety guidelines while redistributing excess food. If business partners with groups like these, they don't have to worry about liability. It's a win-win. Less food waste, more people to be fed.
Nice. So instead of letting good food go to waste, we can all take simple steps to make sure it reaches those who need it.
Exactly. If we change the way we think about food waste, we can turn it into an opportunity to help others. Small actions can lead to big changes. So ask yourself, can this feed someone instead?
That's such a powerful message, right, Haley?
Yes, I agree.
Now, before we wrap up, let's do a quick recap of everything we've talked about today.
So, in summary, our guest speakers suggested three different ways to alleviate poverty. Firstly, we have the 5 peso habit movement, where we set aside 5 pesos a day and donate them at the end of each month. Second is the 1 month, one drive initiative, where each month we donate pre loved items to at least one organization. And lastly, the Waste Less and Feed More campaign that promotes reducing food waste by donating excess food to those who need it.
Hopefully, everyone listening will take a part in at least one of these initiatives. Even the smallest effort, when done together, can create a real change.
All right, and that wraps up today's episode about Sustainable Development Goal number 1, which is no poverty. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Reality Check. See you in the next episode.